So, who's been the most explosive quarterback in the Kirby Smart era? I bet you'd be surprised who number two is. Dean Legge from Dog Post making you a smarter Georgia fan. If you had JT Daniels as your most explosive quarterback in terms of production against Power 5 schools, you'd be right. Let me read this off to you. It took me about 3 or 4 hours to crunch all of the numbers because there are a lot of numbers to crunch, let me tell you. JT Daniels is averaging 5.5 big plays through the passing game per game. So that's 20 plus yard plays throwing the football. These can be screens, they can be down the field, they can be kind of whatever, sideline. But he's at 5.5 a game. So there's 100 yards in big plays just alone right there. The other thing with JT that's kind of interesting is he had in 4 games he had 781 yards of big plays alone just in 4 games. So that's some serious production from JT. As I was talking about earlier, I bet you'd be surprised who number two is. It's Stetson Bennett. He's got 3 a game in games that he started. So that's quite a bit of production from Stetson. It just wasn't there the entire time, and of course that plus his injury in the Florida game is why Georgia made a move. Plus, you have the most explosive quarterback in Kirby Smart's time with JT there. You got to play explosion. I'll go with number 5, tied for number 5. Grayson Lambert and Dwan Mathis both had one explosive play in their game that they started. Jacob Eason with 2.5 explosive plays a game. I thought Jacobs would be higher, frankly, but it didn't turn out that way. I mean, there were a lot of games where Jacob played, the South Carolina game, the Florida game, even the Vanderbilt game, where he really struggled. And when you're struggling, you're just not going to have explosive plays. But when you think about the Missouri game, the Tennessee game, those were games where he had explosive plays just, that mattered too. So I thought Jacob would be higher, but he was not. And then Jake Fromm at 2.9 a game. So Jake started 36 Power 5 games. So that's Notre Dame, Texas, all the SEC schools, and 3 starts against Georgia Tech. And in that time, he had 103 big play passing plays, 3,039 total big play yards. So he certainly had his fair share of them. It's just that he's played far more games. Daniels had 22 big play passing plays, about a fifth of what Jake Fromm's had, but he's only started in, I don't even know what the math is on that. 36, yeah, about a ninth. So his production has really just gone through the roof. It's an impressive look at what Georgia's had and just how dangerous they could be this fall. I mean, when you look at that much production, 5 starts at Georgia, 22 big play passing plays in that time, 781 yards. That's some serious big play from him. I said 100 yards. It's about 200 yards a game in big play passing. That's what you want. You want quick and easy points. And JT Daniels gave Georgia that. I mean, think about that play against Missouri from George Pickens. Just boom. The plays against Mississippi State when he came in. Here are the big plays from JT just for the whole year. And these are against Mississippi State. George Pickens, 28-yard. That was not a touchdown. Burton for 49. Burton for 46. A 48-yard touchdown to Burton. And then a 40-yard touchdown to Kyrus Jackson. A 31-yarder, no touchdown against Mississippi State for Demetrius Robertson. Then 2 big plays against South Carolina. One, a 40-yard throw to Trey McKitty. And then, I don't know if y'all remember this, but the Arian Smith throw, a 31-yarder, was a touchdown. Only 2 big plays against South Carolina. Missouri, 37-yard touchdown for James Cook. 36-yard touchdown for George Pickens. 31 for George Pickens touchdown. a 29-yard play to George Pickens. Darnell for 36 and 25. And then another 23-yarder to George Pickens against Cincinnati. Not a Power 5 team, but I included them in this because they were ranked in the top 10 and they're in a bowl game. 22-yarder to Kendall Milton, 51-yarder to George, 38 to Darnell, 55-yarder to Arian Smith, which should have been a touchdown. Another 20-yarder to George Pickens. Kieris for 42, 23 for George Pickens. I mean, that's a lot of production in a 4-game stretch. And it makes you wonder just how explosive could they be through the air. When you look at that and their average big play is 35 yards, which was another thing where JT Daniels led Georgia in, that plus the third down pickups, they are poised for some serious fireworks in 2021. You start with the game against Clemson, which is going to be a challenge, okay? They have had very good defenses under Brent Venables at Clemson. And not only that, they score a bunch of points, or they have. That Clemson has struggled lately against better teams. When you look at their loss to Ohio State, the loss to Notre Dame, the loss to LSU, those are all games where they gave up 40 points or more, and they didn't score 40 or more except in one of those games. So if Georgia's good enough to score the ball, that can save them. Of course, that could save them in a shootout, or it could become a blowout. The only way you can win a game as a blowout is if you score 40 points. Any more 30 points isn't going to make a blowout. So that's what you're seeing with JT Daniels here. This is a guy that has been extremely productive for Georgia in a short window of time. I mean, we've not seen this sort of... at the first game, after the game I asked, is this legit? Is this a flash in the pan? Or should we expect to see more? As it turns out, we should have expected to see more. I mean, yeah, against South Carolina, he went from having, against Mississippi State, he had 6 big plays. He only had 2 against Carolina. Well, he hardly threw it against Carolina because they were bludgeoning them on the ground. But he still had 2 big plays, a 40-yarder and a 31-yarder. Those all add up. A 20-yard big play matters. That's a fifth of the field. A 40-yarder? This is the thing about it. When I sort here for the team, the yards, that is an indicator of just how explosive can be. The top ones, Daniels does not have any throws past 55 yards. But there is a slew of them that are above 40 yards. And that's what you want to see. You want to see big killer plays that end games. What if they had another big passing play against the Gators like they are? They already had one. That throw from Stetson to St. Jack, that was a huge play. Could put Georgia up 14-0. Then he goes out for a series, and it's just never the same after that. So what happens if JT Daniels can consistently give Georgia the passing threat that the program should earn its way to? You look at the board. There are a ton of gifted playmakers at wideout here for Georgia. If Daniels can do what he did in the first 4 games the entire season, Georgia's going to be a scary team. Period. And that's what, Georgia's never had under Kirby Smart what they've got right now at quarterback. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the last 12 years at Georgia. That would be Aaron. But he's been pretty good. And he's not done it over the long haul like Jake Fromm did, but Jake Fromm wasn't as explosive. All you have to do is go back and look at the previous 2 seasons, the 20 season and the 19 season, to see what Daniels delivered was different than what Georgia had at quarterback at the time. They started 3 different quarterbacks. None of them delivered an explosiveness the way that Daniels did. Jake Fromm was clutch now. Don't get me wrong. There were plenty of times that Jake Fromm did games ended games at Florida. You think about what he did. In a lot of games that mattered for Georgia, Notre Dame, Florida, Auburn. I mean, he was a really good quarterback. Excuse me, in those games, but he wasn't explosive the way that Daniels. We're not talking about what he could be. We're talking about what he is. And I think that that's the part that everybody wants to watch and see. How explosive can Georgia be if Daniels plays the way that he did at the end of the year? And let's be honest, he really didn't play that great against Cincinnati. He played okay, and he had a pile of big plays in that game. Thanks for watching. Dean Legge from Dog Post. Check out the website, dogpost.com, and we'll see you over there. Thanks for watching.